Today's tutorial is a little bit of an emotional one for me. When my daughter was 12, my mum loaned her a necklace to wear to a ball, and today I'm going to recreate that necklace. Now my mum's no longer with us, so that's why it's a little bit emotional for me. Hello my YouTube friends, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Carol, and on this channel I show you how easy it is to make your own jewellery. Now today's tutorial is not exactly a beginner one. It is a little bit more challenging than some that I've done, but it's still within the realms of being moderately easy. So what we're going to make is this wonderful necklace that I borrowed from my mum, or my daughter did, and I never gave it back. Here is the most beautiful necklace. I just love this necklace. I fell in love with it when the very first time I saw it, and I always thought that I really would love that necklace, so that's why it never went back to my mum. So with the beads here, I have been looking for the longest time to find a diamond-shaped bead like this, but I have never found any. These ones are a diamond, but they're faceted, so they're like an elongated bicone. And as I said, I've never found any, but what I have, I think will work. I have some 16 by 10 check glass faceted teardrops, and they have a hole in the top as well. And they're in the colour emerald. I didn't think I needed another red one. So that's what I'm going to use today. Now, as well as that, the beads have been attached with a triangular shaped jump ring. Now I decided not to use a triangular shaped one. I'm just going to use 8mm jump rings. So we'll go with that and see how that works. As well as that, they've used these beautiful textured jump rings. Now I don't have any textured jump rings this size and couldn't find any. So I'm going to be using something else instead. As well, the bicones, these ones are about 6mm. I didn't have those either in the same colour as my teardrops. So I'm going to be using 3mm ones. Now it sounds like I don't have any of the supplies, I know. So let's talk about what I am going to do. As I said, I'm going to use these teardrops for the focal beads, and I've got some 3mm bicones, but I think they'll work fine. I'm going to be making this in rose gold. So I have a rose gold clasp, a lobster clasp, and I've got 2 pieces of 14cm long chain, and this one's a rose gold as well. And I have a whole pile of jump rings. I have 21 of the 8mm ones, and I have 46 of the 4mm ones. And lastly, I have a piece of copper wire. Now, why am I using a piece of copper wire? This is 22 gauge. It's because it was the closest colour I could find to the rose gold. The gold just looked wrong with the rose gold, so the copper works pretty well. So those are the supplies we are going to be using, and we are going to get started and see how this works out. Now, one thing I suggest you do before you start is open all of your 4mm jump rings, and make sure that all of your 8mm jump rings are really well closed. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make my dangles, and I'm going to do that using 9 of the jump rings, my 8mm ones. And in terms of tools, I didn't talk about tools. I'm going to be using 2 pairs of chain nose pliers. I'm going to use my 1-step looper to make the loops, but you could use a pair of round nose pliers if you didn't have a 1-step looper. And I'm going to be using a pair of flush cutters, and that's it. Alright, so I'm going to take my 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, and I'm going to open up some of these loops. I'm going to do one at a time. Just holding the jump ring on either side and opening it. Now if you haven't opened and closed jump rings before, I will leave a link in the description box below to a video that I did on how to do that. But as I said, this is not really a beginner project, so maybe start with something else. Now that jump ring does not want to go through that one. There we go. Some of these check glass beads have slightly smaller holes than the others, but I did find one that it would go through. Now make sure when you are closing your jump rings that you do a really good job, and just double check, because you don't want it falling apart. All right, so here is my first dangle, and I'm going to make 9 of those. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this part of the necklace here. What I've done is created a layout diagram for you, and I will leave a link in the description box below to a blog post, and you can have a look at the diagram, because honestly it gets really confusing when you're trying to put all these rings together, so I thought that was the easiest way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 of my 8mm jump rings, and I'm going to hold them in my pliers with my non-dominant hand. Then I'm going to take a 4mm jump ring and my other pliers, and I'm going to hook it through beside the pliers through both of those rings. And I'm not holding it firm enough, so it's wiggling all over the place. There we go. Now I'm just going to close up that jump ring. And as I said, double check that you have them closed really, really well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that jump ring in my non-dominant hand pliers, and I'm going to grab another one. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, just hooking the little jump ring through both of those 8mm jump rings. That's what I have, and now I'm going to repeat that until I have 9 jump rings joined together in the same way. If you're having difficulty holding your 2 8mm jump rings in your pliers, you can actually do it this way. You can just grab your jump ring, your 4mm, and thread it on. And then thread another one on, and then close it up. I just recommend you try doing it that way, because you will need that technique later on. So now I've got my strand of 9 jump rings in a row joined with 2 of the smaller jump rings. Now what I'm going to do is make this little dangle here, and I'm going to do it by making a chain of 3. I'm going to put on a 4mm jump ring with 2 rings, just like before, 2 of the 8mm, and close that up. Then I'm going to grab another one, and I'm going to thread those 2 jump rings onto that small 4mm, just like before. So that's what I have now. Now I'm going to join another one on this side. So there's my 3, and now what I need to do is join it to this one. So I need to find my center, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's number 5 there. And I'm going to join it to the 4th rings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take ring number 4 in my pliers here, and I'm going to hang it, and then I'm going to take this ring, the end ring, and hang that as well. I'm going to get them nice and close together, and I'm going to join those 2 together. And then add another ring, just like before. Now this is good. If you drop it, like I just did, what I've done in the past when I've been doing this type of thing is I've just picked it up and popped it on, and what's happened is it's been twisted. So I like to go back. If I drop it, I do like to go back to holding it and hanging it, because it just means that I know it's going to be on the right way. So there's what I have now. And what I need to do is bring this one up and join it to number 4 on this side. So these two together here. So now that's sitting exactly how I want it to, so I need to add the dangles, and I'm going to do that with my 4mm jump rings as well. I'm going to take a 4 and a thread on one of my dangles, and I'm going to thread it on to the center here. Now the dangles are only attached with 1 jump ring, not 2. It makes life a little easier. There's my center one, and I know it looks really long, but trust me, it'll work. I'm going to take my next one, and this time I'm going to add it on to the side here. I'm just going to repeat that for the other side. Alright, now I've just realised I've actually missed 2 of my jump rings. I've got to attach this one to this one and this one to this one. So I'm going to do that now. Going to grab those ones, and just using my 2 jump ring technique again, exactly the same. There we go. Now it is all joined how it should be. Alright, now I'm going to add the rest of my dangles, and I am going to add one here, here and here, and one here, here and here. Just using the same technique of just 1 jump ring to attach the dangle. I do suggest that you lay it down between each addition, just so that you make sure that you get it in the right place and on the right side, because you don't want to attach it on the top here and it will be facing the wrong way. So just make sure that you're getting them all on the bottom of the rings. Alright, so there's the focal part of my necklace done. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my little bicone pieces here, these connectors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of wire and my 1-step looper, and I'm going to make a loop in the end of this wire. Now I am using my 1.5mm looper here because I want my loops to be quite small, and so I'm just going to make sure that loop is closed really, really well. I've got a bit of a bend on my wire. Just going to chop off the end. Then I'm going to thread on one of my little bicones, and I'm going to make a loop in the other end. Now the thing with these bicones is they are really delicate, and so you don't want to get them too close to the jaws of the pliers, but at the same time you want your loop to be quite close to the bicone. So you've just got to judge it really carefully. And make sure that one's closed as well. Now this wire is quite nice to work with, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that both of my loops are going the same way, just by grabbing them in the pliers and turning. So there's my little bicone piece, and I'm going to make 3 more. Now if you didn't have a 1-step looper, you could make these loops with your round nose pliers. If you don't know how to do that, I'll leave a link in the description box below and the cards above for a video on how to do that as well. That one's looking a little skewy. Right, so there are my 4 little bicone connectors. Next, I'm going to use a 4mm jump ring. I'm going to pop it on the end here and connect it to one of my connectors. Just taking my 4mm in my pliers and picking up that loop and that ring and popping that on, and also my connector, and closing up my jump ring. And repeating that with another jump ring and connecting the next connector. Okay, there's the focal part of my necklace. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 of the 4mm jump rings, and I'm going to attach the chain to either end. I just realized something. I was supposed to put 3 jump rings here, not just the one. So I'm going to, between the 2 connectors, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to add that in. If I don't add it in, it'll be too short. So there we go, that's better. Now I've got the required amount of jump rings there. Now I'm going to take my 4mm jump ring and I'm going to attach the chain. So popping it through the end of this loop here, the last loop, and just popping on the end of the chain. And closing up that jump ring. And I'm going to repeat that to attach the other piece of chain to the other end. Okay. Last thing to do is to add the clasp. I'm going to use the another 4mm, thread it through the end, and pop on the loop of the clasp and close that up. Now all I need to do is put on my jump ring on this end, and I think I'm actually going to use a 6mm and 4mm. I've got a 6mm here. I just prefer to do my clasp up into a 6 rather than a 4. So I'm going to put the link of the chain, the last link of the chain, onto the 4 as well as the 6mm jump ring, and I'm going to close that up. Now I have changed the rules. I've added something to the materials, so I will leave a link in the description box below, and I will leave a link in the description box below to the blog post, and I will also leave all of the links to everything I used today with the number that I used. All right, so let's have a look. Okay, so here's the original and here's my recreation. Now it does sit slightly differently because of the fact that I used the 8mm jump rings instead of the triangular shaped jump rings, and also the different sizes because these rings aren't 8mm and mine are, and also of course the different size of the beads. But I still really like mine, and I'm actually okay with it being a little bit different from the original. So here's my necklace, and I absolutely love it. I think it looks a little different from the one that my mum's necklace, but I still really love it, and I love the green. It looks fantastic. I am so happy with it. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more, remember to subscribe and also click that little notification bell. Give me the cheeky thumbs up, and that way you will never miss a thing. Also check us out on Facebook and Instagram. If you would like to make the necklace that I was wearing before I put this one on, then I will leave a link in the description box below for a tutorial I did on that one too. Thank you so much for watching today. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon.